Hi everyone. In this video, we'll try to understand what is input provided as a parameter, right? What do you mean by this, right? So let's say there is a person A, okay, and there's a person B, okay, there's a person B, okay, so both are trying to code together, okay, both are trying to code together. Let's say person A is writing a piece of code, okay, but he does not know how to find out whether, like how to find whether this number n is a prime number or not, right? He does not know that, right? So what he'll do, he will request this person B, okay, he will request this person B, okay, that please can you find out the prime number for this number and tell me what is the output. Okay, so this n, right, whatever the n that you're seeing over here, this acts as an input. This n acts as an input, okay, which is being provided to B by A, right? So this n is being provided to B by A, okay, and so this is known as the input, right? So what do you mean by this, right? So at the end, what are variables? Variables are nothing but placeholders, right? It's a placeholder, right? It's a placeholder which basically stores values, right? It's a placeholder which actually stores values, right? So A is not 5, right? A is not something which is stored, it's not a number, right? It's just a variable name which is storing some value, right? So right now, A is storing a value 5, right? Similarly, if we write B is equal to 10, right? So B is storing nothing but a value 10, right? So it's just a placeholder, right? So now, so whatever the value that is stored inside n, right? It can be 10, it can be 20, that value is being passed to B, right? So now B can accept this in any form of a variable, right? Whatever the value, let's say 10 is being passed, okay? He can accept it in any variable, right? He can accept it in X, he can accept it in Y, he can accept it in Z, right? He can accept it in any variable, right? So whatever the, let's say, whatever variable he accepts it, okay, he has to use that variable to finish his code, okay? He has to predict whether this X is a prime number or not, right? So what is this X? Let's say n is 10 over here. So this X, whatever the value is thrown by A to B, right? So X basically accepts it in the form of a variable and X stores 10, right? Okay. So now the variable can be anything, right? The variable can be Y also, Z also, but the value inside that will remain the same, right? So he will use the value X, okay, the variable X and the value inside it to check whether this is a prime number or not, right? Whether this is a prime number or not, okay? So now, so what we understood, let's say, so there are functions calling another functions, okay, and whatever the value that is passed by this function, right? Okay, so whichever function is calling this particular function, let's say function A, okay, so this function will be passing in some values. So this is known as input parameters, right? Input parameters, okay. So it can pass into three variables X, Y, Z, right? Okay, so this can pass in, let's say, three variables, right? Let's say 3, 5, 10, any variable, right? Any variable or direct values also it can pass, and this X will be storing 3, Y will be storing 5, Z will be storing 10, right? Or it can directly pass in variable names, right? Let's say A is storing 3, right? Let's say A is storing 3, B is storing 5, and C is storing 10. I can also pass it like this, right? I can also pass it like A, B, and C. Okay, so X will be storing whatever the value that is stored inside A, Y will store whatever value is stored inside B, and Z will store whatever value is inside C, right? So let's try to understand in terms of the question. Okay, so this is your first question which you'll be solving after this task, right? So try to understand this int A and int B. What are these? These are input parameters, okay? So it is being called by the main method, okay? So main method are something which will be the first one to execute, okay? And swap A comma B is being called, right? Swap A comma B. So these values are being passed to this method, okay, as input parameter. So whatever the code that you have to write, okay, you will be writing in respect to A and B, right? So whatever swapping that you have to do, okay, you have to do in respect to A and B, right? So the values are already given to you, okay? So you just have to write the code, right? So whatever the code for swap is, okay, you just have to write it over here, right? Similarly, in other languages also like Java and all, right? So these values are being passed to you as parameters, right? Input parameters. And who is passing it? The function which is calling it, right? So which function is calling it? Main method is calling it. So if you look at this, swap a comma b is being called, right? So similarly, if you look at JavaScript, right? So swap, so these are the inputs which are taken by the users, and you have to just finish this function, right? You just have to finish this function. Okay. So a and b is being passed to you. Okay. So now it depends on you whether you want to accept this as a or b, or you can accept it as xy also. Okay. But mind you, if you are basically changing the variable name, you have to change it everywhere in the code. Okay. You have to change it everywhere in the code. Okay. Because whatever your answer is, it's in terms of x and y. Okay. So don't worry. Okay. I will actually teach you everything, right? How to create functions, how to create classes, what each and everything means. Okay. Slowly and gradually. Okay. Within 20-25 days, okay, you will become very comfortable, right? You will become very comfortable with all these languages. Not all the languages, just one language. Okay. You just have to concentrate in one particular language. Okay. It can be anyone, right? It can be either Java or C++ or Python or any language. Okay. So now it's important. Let's say if you choose Java, okay, you stick to Java. Okay. Because I want you to master just one particular language, right? And not become good in all the languages, but not being able to master one, right? Because companies will just ask you one particular language. Okay. So it's very important that you just focus on one language. Okay. It can be Java, it can be C++, it can be Python, it can be JS, right? JavaScript, right? It can be any one language, but ensure that you stick to this language, okay, throughout the course, right? Whichever language you choose, you stick to that language throughout the course. Okay. So I hope you have understood. Let me know if you guys have any queries. Thank you.